Just back from the Bassmaster South Carolina swing, Lake Murray and Santee Cooper Lakes, and this week it is Jake's Take. That's right, a total behind the scenes of everything Bassmaster from Stop 3 and Stop 4 of the Bassmaster Elite Series. This week, Jake Latendresse, Bassmaster Videographer, joins me on...
I'm Bob Cobb from the Bassmaster. Welcome to Mercer.
Welcome one, welcome all, friends, family, freeloaders, fishing freaks. You're all welcome here at the Awkwardly Honest Fishing Podcast that goes by my last name. Happy Wednesday. It is Hump Day, and I want to welcome in all our humpers that tune in here week after week. I thank you all for watching the tomfoolery that happens on this particular channel. It is our first podcast in May, which is hard to believe. Months are just flying past. It's crazy. Today, May 3rd. I kind of wish it was May 4th, because then I could be like, May the 4th be with you. But hey, if you're watching this on Wednesday, just watch it again tomorrow, and I'll do it right now. May the 4th be with you. I hope you're having a good day. I hope all of you are having a good day, no matter when you're watching this. And that's... one thing that I'm very thankful for each and every week that you guys tune in, and shout out to all of the humpers that I met in South Carolina. The amount of people that continue to come up and talk to me about the podcast is amazing, and I am thankful for that. I am very, very thankful for each and every one of you. I'm also very thankful for this week's guest. He is a friend of the show, of course. I mean, you have seen him many, many times. If this is your first time, well, buckle up, because it's going to be a fun one. It is Jake's Take. And for those of you who don't know what Jake's Take is, Jake Latendresse is Bassmaster Videographer extraordinaire. And he just kind of breaks down what he sees from the boat. And I break down what I saw around the event. And we try to give you news, notes, and nuggets about things that happen behind the scenes at the Bassmaster event. So if you're into all things bass fishing and Bassmaster and behind the scenes little nuggets, you may want to stick around, because it's about to rain some nuggets. Speaking of raining nuggets, let's bring him in right now. Jake Latendresse. It's always a good day when Jake's Take is back in your life. And Jake, another back-to-back swing in South Carolina, two amazing events, obviously Lake Murray first and then Santee Cooper Lakes. And it's good to be home, but it was a pretty incredible South Carolina swing.
South Carolina is incredible for if you're a bass fisherman. South Carolina is incredible. To me, it's right behind Texas in terms of all the lakes you can fish, the different types of things you can do. I mean, look at the pros that come out of South Carolina. You know, it's in the two lakes we went to. I'd never been to Lake Murray before, but I walked away going, that's one of the very best bass. Like, that place is insane. There's so many bass in it, big bass.
Yeah, and it was weird because I felt, and I don't know if this is just something I felt, but I felt going into those two, everybody kind of took Murray for granted. Like, it was all about Santee Cooper. You know what I mean? And we're going to Murray, which is cool. Year. And there was some people saying Murray'd be good, like numbers-wise, but dude, I don't remember ever having a weigh-in where that many people went on stage, whether they caught them or didn't catch them, and we're like, man, it was like being in an aquarium out there. The amount of fish that you literally saw on every point. Did you experience that when you were on the water?
100%. And I would say that, you know, as many fish as there are in Lake Murray that you can clearly see on the, you know, in the rocks, on the points. I mean, they're everywhere, and they were shallow, you know, whether they were spawning or whether they were chasing blueback herring, they were in shallow water. So they were very visible. But the tricky part about it, and the intriguing thing about it, was there's so many 5 to 7 pound bass in that lake, and you can't get them to bite. Even top water, when they're blowing up, like, you couldn't be doing something else and then grab your spook and throw it out there and try to catch one, because there would be like 2 to 3 seconds of this eruptive piranha-like activity, and then it would just disappear.
Yeah.
So they would literally have to be holding their rod with a top water bait ready to go, and as soon as they bust, they had to cast and they had to make these perfect casts in front of the fish. But there were very few times that I actually saw guys catching fish during blowups, and no one could figure out why.
It's because they're not bass, dude. They're on that herring. They're on that smack. Like
Yeah,
like literally, they don't act like a bass anymore. They, that's the amazing thing about bass fishing to me. Like the amount of natural lakes, private lakes, and places I've been, and we take the food source for way too much for granted. I think, you know what I mean? Like in the way that like people are like, oh yeah, they like herring, but they like frogs and they like this. No, when they like herring, that's all they want. They become a whole different creature. They don't
crack.
even. It is literally like a drug to them, and they get on that herring and they'll drive you crazy. But one of the dudes that was actually really excited coming into this event is recently local, but still local the same. And the guy that you were with day one, Brian New, was excited about this event. And you fished with him on day one, which was, well, you didn't fish with him. Here we go again.
I
You
filmed
you
I
filmed
filmed him
him. That's
fishing.
right. That's
Yeah,
right.
I was covering him. You know, Brian knew I'd never been in his boat before, but we're acquaintances and friends, just seeing each other on the dock. I always high five him. I think he's got an intriguing personality. He's got a he's always upbeat and or at least I should say he's always jacked, right?
Yeah.
And so I was looking forward to being in his boat, particularly on his home lake. And while we all know Brian New is a heavy hitter, he's a stick. I mean, he's great at what he does, right? I felt nervousness, I think, initially when I got in his boat, and I'm not pointing fingers at Brian New. I'm saying that about almost everyone that I've been in the boat with, fishing on their home lake.
It's
They
hard.
feel they feel the pressure. Like I almost feel sorry for him. I've been with Drew Benton on Seminole. I've been with Brian New on Lake Murray. I've been with Buddy Gross at Chickamauga. I've been with lots of these guys on their home lakes, and really the only one that I have covered that felt really strong, and he didn't the first time that we came to Lake Fork when he was in the Elite Series. It was Lee Livesey. He had that one year, the first year that he was at Lake Fork as an elite. He didn't do very well, and then the second and third time we came there after that, he settled down and figured things out and won both of those tournaments. Which, to me, when I hear people criticizing that he did well because he's a guide on the lake,
Oh,
dude, I'm
so
like
easy.
I'm so completely opposite of that. Because let's say Brian knew this is a home lake. The unfortunate thing for him was we came out of the gates 100. There was 104 boats in the tournament, and we were boat number 103. So he spent the first hour running around just trying to get to a spot to start his rotation, and he couldn't even get on a spot because there was someone on every single spot we went to. So what does that do? That it has to throw you off a bit, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and Brandon New's also dealing with, then that was just the third event of his season at that time, but he's also dealing with something that we haven't seen him deal with since he's been here in the Elite Series, and that is adversity. I mean, literally after those events, I was just checking on my phone while you were talking there. He's 101st in Angler of the Year standings. Brian New is 101st out of 104. And that's, dude, that pressure that he's dealing with right now. And I had to feel like after two tough first events to break out, he's like going to South Carolina. He's like, okay, now here's where I right the ship. And then nobody's impervious to that pressure. And I do believe that Brian New will figure some stuff out this season. And it it's not going to stay like that. He is an incredibly talented angler. But I think that we also take for granted the pressure that these anglers feel, and you feel a lot more of it when you're not catching them. And this is a weird year where he's just not been catching them.
And everybody had, what's it's hard to explain to people, and it almost sounds like an excuse, but to me, it's not.
I just punched
having
my mic for no particular reason.
pow, pow. Having been around, for long enough now to really understand these patterns and and ruts that people get into, and everybody does it, from the very best of them to the not so prevalent anglers. They're everybody gets into these ruts, and then you see people turn it around the following year. And I think oftentimes, when someone has a really good year, the following year they don't they like something slips. And maybe it's because of overconfidence, or they worked really hard to have that really great angler of the year type of a year, and then the next year things fall off. But I'll go back to something that you and Lee Livesey had talked about on one of your podcasts. This year's different, and I totally agree with what you guys had talked about, that there is more seriousness, and there's something about the comp. I got goosebumps, dude. I don't know if you can see them, but I got goosebumps talking about it, because I truly believe these anglers that had come up after the Major League Fishing flip, that this is the really, like, these guys are so good, and they have finally settled into their spots and their characters and their niches in the angling world, that it is as competitive as I've ever seen Bassmaster Elite. How about you?
I agree, but I also think that, and I had a conversation with me and Davey Height talked to him for 20, 30 minutes one day outside of the cut. He had made the cut, and dude, it's so close. Like, all of them, like from 101st to 9th in Angler of the Year is like this much. We think it's like, you look at how difference in points, it's a lot. But like, he kept going through. He's like, at this event, I decided to go here. But if I had gone right, which I was trying to decide, if I'd have just, I would have caught him then. And then I went here and I was an hour late for this bite or that. It's little minute decisions. And that, I think, is what's so frustrating for the anglers, because I mean, it's not golf. It's not like where you can just be like, okay, what's wrong with his swing? Let's look at it. Let's take it apart and see. It's all comes down to decision making. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I mean, there's some very proficient anglers, great casters. Like, less casting doesn't win. You know what I mean? It's decision making at the end of the day. Yes, they're all good at presentations, but at the end of the day, your decisions have to be right. And if your decisions are off by this much, you could have the kind of season that Brian New is having. And that's why I'm thankful to be a tournament MC and not a freaking tournament competitor, because their lives are, it's really hard. And everybody tells you the same thing: relax, just relax, go fishing. Good, do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
It isn't an easy thing to do. I think that Brian New will recover from his tough year. I mean, he's got to start recovering soon. I mean, we're 2 days away, 2 days of competition away from literally the halfway point in the season.
Mhm.
Did he seem panicked throughout the day, or did he just keep expecting it to happen and then all of a sudden it didn't?
Yeah, I think he never seemed panicked to me. He didn't spin out. I just think that, his area was fishing pretty small, and he couldn't get, and he's not like some people. He doesn't wedge himself into, a spot between two boats.
Yeah.
He doesn't he's not going to go, ask someone if he can share an area with someone. He likes to do it his way, and he likes to do it on his own terms, and he doesn't want to be that guy, right? So I think that has a lot to do with not being able to get on his spots, because let's face it, there might be a community hole where he might know some small detail about a cast angle or a weather pattern that fits that location, or the wind direction or whatever, that other people might not know, and he could squeeze in there and catch them one or two for his well, and then move on. But he wasn't going to do that. And I kudos to him for being that polite, respectable angler, for not going down that road, right? But I also think, you know, his area was fishing small and he couldn't get to where he wanted to go. And at the end of the day, the guys that were doing well were in those spots.
And I think in that environment too, the more you have in a tournament like that is your detriment. Like the anglers are running points but if you have 200 points versus an angler that has 20 points, an angler that has 20 points is forced to slow down. You know what I mean? And I don't mean slow down fishing, because the way we're all fishing was fast and you're covering water. And if they're chewing when you get there, but it forces you not to spend the whole day running. And I think that the more of that you have, and the more times you knock at the door and you're like, there's someone there, there's, your knowledge becomes actually against you in that situation. If it's going right, it's great. But once it starts to go wrong, it gets a lot worse on you. So yeah, you got to fish with Brian New when he was, struggling. Hopefully you get to see the true New, because we know how well he fishes. But you definitely got to see something, because the next 2 days you were with a guy who had, a pretty incredible South Carolina swing. But it was like a roller coaster. It was ups and downs, and like a good movie. You laughed, you cried. And that's what Matt Robertson's South Carolina swing was like. Led both events on the first day in South Carolina, and
with big bags. Big bags.
So after you were shooting Brian New all day, you found out, well, New's not in the top 10. So I now get tournament leader Matt Robertson.
Matt Robertson, everybody's favorite redneck. I love Matt Robertson, right? It's no secret. He's dug himself a hole a time or two, but if I can say that, but man, one of the things I've been waiting to be able to say this on the podcast, because I feel like it doesn't get said enough. Maybe it's never been said to the public, but I want people to know actually how nice of a guy, if that's a description, that Matt Robertson is. When you're one-on-one with him, Matt is an extreme, like, he's very polite, and he's not different. He doesn't change. He's still Matt Robertson, because he still uses rusty channel locks to, pull hooks out of fish's mouths, and, and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, Matt is very conscientious of your presence in his boat or on the dock or whatever it is. And I appreciate and respect that about Matt Robertson.
Yeah. I think that's been said in the public, though. I don't think I think most people know he's a good dude. I feel like he's a good person. I just don't. Somebody like that is going to rub some people the wrong way, at times. But you look at how many other. Here's the scratch and sniff test. You look at how many pros get excited when he's doing well, and how many people have his back, and how. If you're not a good dude, that don't happen. That's just simply what happened. But Matt is a great person, and I think he's great for the sport. I've said it a bunch of times. What he does, he brings excitement. And everybody doesn't have to like the excitement. It doesn't have to be your particular kind of excitement. But if he's bringing excitement to the sport, it's a good thing. You know what I mean? Like we need more of that, in my opinion. More people being real, being themselves. But on stage, dude, he said, like, what kind of boat problems was he having when you were with him? Like, literally one day on stage, I think it was after day 2, he's like, or no, maybe after day 3, he's like, man, I got to get a new boat tomorrow, because he said, if I use that boat, it won't make it back to the dock, he said.
It was very real too. He was having electrical issues where we would hit a wave, right, on a run, and all of his electronics would go dead, like everything. And then he'd hit another wave and it would come back on. Okay, well, you got a short somewhere, buddy. There's something, there's a contact somewhere that's not viable. And he called Mercury. He called all of his, all the staff that he could to help him over the phone on the water. And I think he actually, no, Brian New threw an ear off a prop one day and had to change the prop. But, Matt, it ended up being a loose fuse or a blown fuse or a fuse that was half blown that still had some viability to it. So every time we hit the wave, it would create contact and then not. So I think he got it fixed after day 2 that night. They fixed it for him and we didn't have any problems on day 3, but that was a struggle. And as well as I do, man, when they're in a tournament like that, particularly a guy that's leading, I know it's day 1 and most people don't expect to lead from bookend to bookend,
Yeah.
right? Most people don't, wire to wire. But you're still excited because you caught 25 or 28 pounds of fish and you're banking on going back to those same spots, doing the same things on that pattern and catching fish. And then you've got a boat distraction that you've got to deal with. And I think sometimes that throws people off.
Yeah. How was he catching them? What was he doing?
He was, let me see, he was catching some on Carolina rigs, which Lee Livesey tipped off to him. But he was throwing topwater, spooks over those blueback herring points. And I'm trying to remember, he was
Cane
doing some
Walker, I think
flipping.
he threw
Yeah,
too.
he was
Yeah.
throwing a cane walker. He had a couple of swim bait, hard body swim baits that he was testing out and trying to catch fish on. But he didn't do as well on day 2, so I wasn't there to film him catch 26 pounds on day 1, which would have been way more exciting. But it's always fun. I always have fun in Matt's boat. I do, not gonna
So
lie.
was it your fault that he didn't catch him?
Maybe maybe I've turned into the bad luck. I've filmed some pretty big days this year for people, but I haven't filmed a winner yet.
No, you've
And
had a weak season, dude. Like
I
this
know,
time last year, I think you were undefeated, and now you're.
plus a classic with Jason Christie, you know.
I got camera guys slipping me cards a lot, Jake.
I know. But the thing is, not one other camera guy has become the lucky guy. It's like there's a different camera guy in the winning boat at each tournament now. So that
Well,
makes me feel better. That's what I
okay.
tell myself when I go to bed at night, Dave.
But I think just as much can be learned too when you're with somebody who doesn't do well, because I mean, that's, be honest, everybody always talks about, the winner, it gets dissected every fish catch, but there's a lot and that goes on in a boat. And, it's weird because like this last one, and I don't want to jump ahead, but like I said that to Matt at weigh-in, like he led the first 2 days of Santee Cooper. And after weighing on day 3 and day 4, it was like, it feels like a month ago that you were leading this event. He literally at one time had a 4 or 5 pound lead. And then I think he ended up losing the tournament by 40 pounds. Like how crazy that swing changes. But that's every Elite Series event. Like there is this weird emotional roller coaster where to stay on top of it the whole time, it is
So
a tough thing to do. But you fished with him both day 2 and day 3, right? You were in his boat.
Correct. And I will say this, which you just brought up, relating to something early in our conversation, being in a boat with winners and people that don't win. I'm not going to call them losers because that's not what they are, right? But watching both sides of it often, over 13 years, one of the things that you do notice is this is about decision making and timing, and your decisions affect your timing, right? So really it's all founded on and based upon decision making based on what wind direction,
Yeah.
what the forage base is in the lake, how much pressure they're getting, all those things. And I learned just as much from the guys that are running around not doing as well as I do, let's say, the decision Jason Christie made last year in the classic to fish these certain types of docks. So
Yeah.
then he was running these coves, looking down the coves, seeing if those kinds of docks were in there. If they weren't there, he just kept going. those kinds of decisions, ultimately helped him. I mean, they won him the Bassmaster Classic, but those kinds of decisions are easy to pick up on because they're patterns that he's sticking to. And people say Hartwell is notorious for once you find a pattern, it goes down on the whole lake. But I think almost every lake we go to is like that. Do you not? Do you agree
Oh
to that?
yeah. And the biggest thing that stands out to me too that Bass Live has exposed and Bass Track specifically is how key timing is. Like and it's different in a lot of places. People, there's a morning bite, an afternoon bite, but there's windows throughout the day, and it's always different. But there's windows throughout the day. And here's one of the things you can do if you really want to see it. I follow Bass Track on Twitter, but on event days, I put the notifications on just that. So I don't get notifications on any tweets at all on my phone. But on Bass Track on event days, you do. So you literally have a live tally of what's happening. So that way, when I'm on live, I can pick up my phone on commercial break, look at it and be like, okay, there's been 10 fish caught since I last checked this, because they come up on your phone live. But there'll be times throughout the day where all of a sudden you will get dunk, 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 like you haven't heard anything for an hour, but then all of a sudden, boom, 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 you get all these alerts, because that's how important that timing window is. And you're talking about parts of lakes that, are 10, 20, 30 miles away from each other, but they all turn on at the exact same time. So
It's
I think
unbelievable how that happens. It truly is, because we can't communicate with the angler we can't help them, we can't assist them in catching fish in any way whatsoever, right? And so, outside of the just chit chat that I have with the anglers about random things while they're fishing, we can't talk about what's going on in the lake. But I've got calm in one ear and I've got my angler's audio in the other ear, and I'm hearing him talking about.
So calm for the viewer. That's the producers and everybody in the truck talking to you.
Studio communication.
All right. And then
we're
program,
tapped in,
which is Bass Live in the other ear.
So I've got a director and all the other camera guys in one ear, and I've got my angler's audio mic, his lav mic, in my other ear, so I can hear what he's saying. And so when the lake, my guy might be late in catching one when the lake turns on, or he might be the first guy to catch a big one, and then all of a sudden it's like everybody else is catching them too. And while I can't say anything to him because he's probably going, he's got, his mind is racing. Believe it or not, these anglers listen. They know how, like, they pay attention to how many times they go on live, and they know if they're not coming to them very often on live, that other people are doing better than they are. And that pressure builds and they're playing games in their head. It's
a
remarkable.
bad game to play, though. It's
bad, it is
because it's wrong a lot of times. Like, I remember when me and Overstreet were always on the water together, and we'd pull up on someone and I'd hear from them afterwards. That's when I knew I was getting them. No, we couldn't find the dude we were looking for. And that's why you know what I mean? There is some of it to it, but there is also a lot of times like when camera people will leave an angler, the angler's often like, oh boy, somebody else is catching me. Right. Maybe the camera person just needs to go to the bathroom.
Right.
There's a lot.
Maybe he just had to go back and get his gallery set up for for digital, or whatever it is. I mean, they look at people, how many boats are running around.
Yeah.
They're constantly playing mind games with themselves. And while, they're playing mind games, we know exactly what's going on. And it is remarkable how often, especially that after that midday lull from that 1 to 3 o'clock PM, how the lake turns on in different ways, be it a frog bite or, a swim bait bite or a chatterbait bite in the grass or whatever it is. It just turns on, and it's incredible how that happens.
Yeah. So on the final day, you got close to a victory.
Mm-hmm.
You were with a Drew.
Mm-hmm.
Just the wrong Drew this time. Drew Benton wins the tournament with 87 pounds, but you were with Drew Cook.
I was with Drew Cook, and he was doing well. Where did he finish? 5 or 6?
Yeah, somewhere. Not in the top 3. He was, I know. No. I think he was 5th. I think he was
Yeah, I think it
fifth.
was fifth or sixth. And what did he finish on Santee Cooper?
Third.
Fifth or third. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, that's Drew Cook and Drew Benton are incredible. Right now, they are the hottest ticket on the water, and they work together, they promote together, they they share information, and they're really, really fun to watch. They are two of the very best bed fishermen in the world, hands down.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm
yeah.
not saying there's not anyone better. There's not anyone better than them, but I'm saying they're world class bed fishermen. And being in the boat with lots of different guys over my career as a cameraman there, it's apparent to me, like I learn a lot, and I feel like I understand how to bed fish now. Not that I'm going out doing it today, but I understand how to do it the right way, just being around Drew Benton and Drew Cook. They're freaking incredible.
They're incredible at it. I think they see him better than anybody. You know what I mean? There's a lot of reasons. But you talk to camera people, you talk to still photographers that have been with them, and they're like, there's times when they're looking at a fish and I'm like, what is he looking at? And like, they see them better than anybody. And it's one of the coolest things to see an angler doing what they're best at. And that's truly what they're best at. One of the coolest communication moments actually happened at Santee. We're going ahead to the second tournament, but in that tournament, we had a camera with both Drews, and me and Davey happened to be on live at that time. And it was I was like, we don't need to talk. We just need to listen to this.
Watch.
But because we had them both together and they were both mic'd, we got to listen to how they work as a team. You know what I mean?
Do you remember when we cross referenced cameras? Me and Dave Pennington, I was in Drew Cook's boat. Dave Pennington was in Drew Benton's boat, and we were in the same little pocket, and we crossed cameras over. And Ricky Smith, who's the audio guy in studio, he was pulling up the audio as they were talking. So it sounded like we had them both mic'd on the same camera. And when I got back to the trailer, not everyone, but people came up to me going, dude, that was so cool what you guys did with Dave, with the two Drews.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, hopefully we posted at some point, but it was like a 15-minute conversation. They're both fishing, but like, you want to see how to work as a team. This is how you work as a team. Like, they knew who each other's fish were. And then me and Davey got into this whole thing, like what percentage of people in the elites work as a team. And I was like, I still stick with it. I think it's 35 to 50% of the anglers out there are a team in some way. Some of them are to the total extreme where the Johnstons split every dollar that each of them make goes into one account. And then there's some of them that are just helping at times, but there is a lot of teams on the Elite Series. And it was really cool to get a front row seat to see those guys and how they work together on the water.
Mm-hmm. And how they've become what they have become together.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The results are there. Their ability to work together is obviously productive, because they just finished. Where Drew Benton finished at Santee Cooper?
At Santee, he was
13th,
just out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Both of them had
cash
great
big checks.
Yeah.
They're not eating macaroni and cheese and broccoli tonight, and the thing that they both see the same things, and they know the life history patterns of males and females, or I should say females and males on the bed, and what to do when they're acting a certain way. And even in not in glaring water where the sun's not high enough yet, or there's too much wind, they've got these little tricks where they can see better. But it's not like they're seeing a big fish sitting right on top of the bed like you would want to see them. They might see a tail or a pectoral fin in a small keyhole of light 10 feet away from the bed. And then they size up that fin knowing what size it is and go, well, there's the buck, or there's the female. Okay. Now where's the buck? And they assess the situation like some kind of freaking reality TV show looking in the front door of of Married with Children. Because they make decisions based on how these fish are getting along. I mean, Drew caught a big one on Lake Lake Murray on a bed on
Drew Cook.
Drew Cook.
Okay.
Yeah, what did I say?
You said Drew.
Oh, Drew Cook.
They're both true.
And he stayed on this fish that was on a dock, had a bed on a dock.
Yeah.
He flipped and flipped and flipped and flipped and flipped and flipped and finally caught her. And I said, what, I was talking to him while it was going on. He was giving me play-by-play instructions, all that. He goes, she's not mad yet because that male is still doing his job.
Yeah.
So I got to make sure that male stops doing his job to make her get mad at him for not holding down the fort. And I'm like, this is like humans.
No, but that's the magic. That's why they're so good at it. It's in a bed fishing experience. I think, and watching them more and more, the first 5 minutes of them on a bed is what's really special. They are better at assessing, I need to leave this fish. He needs more time to
exactly. They're not there yet.
Locked on. They're just kind of, they're not committed to it, but they are better at reading the situation, because sight fishing, I mean, it can also destroy you. There's as many people who, like, you find a big fish in a bed, it could be the nemesis of your entire tournament because you lock onto it and you're like, this thing's a double digit. I need to catch it. They're better at compartmentalizing. This is a catchable fish. This isn't a catchable fish yet, or this will be a catchable fish at this time. And they're truly amazing at sight fishing. I mean, they're amazing anglers, but that is their bag, baby. They are very good.
No doubt. I mean, very few times have I been in the boat with anglers that are that dialed into a special program that they understand. Like Ish is with a frog. Like, he's incredible with a frog. And it's so much fun to be in the boat with him when he's throwing a frog, because he knows where to throw it, how to throw it, what his cadence needs to be coming back. And those are the days where I truly, I absorb my job because I'm learning something incredible. Like you're on a Planet Earth video or something.
Yeah.
It's just insane. It's insane.
I think it's a lot like the Johnsons on the St. Lawrence River. Mm-hmm. They've done it so much. They know how quick it can get right. Because if you look at them, they're both so committed to it. Like, we went through 2 events where all we heard from competitors, from locals, that their sight bite is leaving. If you were here 2 weeks ago, this would have been a different tournament. The sight bite is dwindling. It's getting less. We went to, they milked it all the way through. Obviously, the first one, and Drew Benton wins the tournament, but had that struggle day. I think on day 3, he only weighed in 13, 14 pounds.
Yeah. Yep.
Every other competitor in the field would have said they were right. The sight bites, but they know that I probably don't have to catch him every single day because the highs are so high. If you can survive those low days like Drew Benton did, you end up winning a tournament like he did, because the highs are so high. But I think it's because they know it's their best shot to fish. Like I talked to Benton about it on Sunday morning. I'm like, are you, before takeoff, I'm like, you're sight fishing, right? And he's like, yeah, I mean, that's where I have a shot to win this tournament. And they know that, and they're more committed to it. There's other people who tiptoe into sight fishing, but they're like, we're going to sight fish this tournament. We're going to live or die. And they lived in a big way in South Carolina.
And I really don't think it's a matter of what a lot of anglers might think, where, okay, we're just going to go looking, which they do. Okay. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. But if they're not up in 2 feet of water, they're not scared to go look for bedfish in 8 feet of water.
Yeah.
And catch them, on a drop shot instead of a Texas rig, or, they do these little bitty things that make a huge difference. And it is truly an honor. I love both of those guys. Like, I've been in their boat many times now over the past 5 years, and I consider them to be friends. And every time they're in, if I walk by them at the dock, I always high five both of them and wish them both luck. And I'm always rooting for them because they're so good at what they're doing right now. It's just crazy.
They're incredible anglers. Drew Cook specifically, though, and something that hasn't been talked about. And I actually called him before we recorded to say, am I okay to talk about this? Because it has been something I've thought about a lot. It's been something that it's amazing that he could perform the way he did. He got a call on Sunday of the first of Murray, right before weigh-in. Drew's dad had a stroke that day. And he was in a local hospital. I'm happy to report that his dad's doing much better. He's still dealing with some side effects, and he's got a long recovery ahead of him, but he's going to get the opportunity to do that. I mean, I talked to Drew and he said,
improving.
Yeah, he's improving. They're hoping that as of today, and this is Tuesday, we're recording this, that he'll get moved to a local hospital because he's still in Lexington, I think is where he was.
Mm-hmm.
But man, to be able to do what Drew Cook did, and that's, I mean, it happens all the time in the Elite Series. First of all, our thoughts and prayers are with his dad, Finley. I mean, I've talked about his dad a ton of times on this. I didn't know his name was Finley, to be honest. Like a big barrel of a man, scary looking dude. But he's always like, I always point them out because I just love it. Like, to me, that his family's been through a lot, that he lost his mom, a few years before he made it to the Elite Series, and his dad's support of him since day number one. Like, this past week may have been the first tournament ever that I didn't see his dad at. And we're thinking about
Santee Cooper.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was. So an amazing man. We wish him a speedy recovery. Our thoughts and prayers are with him. But also, I mean, Drew Cook, you are a freaking certified badass, because you know what? That's not easy to do, to focus on fishing when that's going on with your family, with your dad. Never mind a few years after you lost your, you know what I mean? Like, dude, as a guy who's lost both his parents, that affects you different. And I just feel like kudos to Drew for being the tough person that he is. That happens all the time in the Elite Series. Maybe it's not that story, but like, that's the one thing we never talk about.
Life still goes on. These professional athletes, they have lives at home. They have issues. They have the new guys, the young guys, everybody's having babies now.
Yeah.
How many strollers you got, running around behind the stage at the weigh-in tanks now? It's like, these people have lives too.
Yeah.
People like this. And for them for Drew Cook to compartmentalize his dad here and a 5-pounder on a bed here is incredible. And for him, remember, he flipped for this. There was 4 fish, 3 males and 1 female on like 3 different beds in this one little lily on this little point. Wes Logan was over here on this other more primary point. Drew Cook is on the secondary point. And he's like, dude, there's like 4 fish. They're everywhere right here. So he pulls down. And he's like, I kind of need these. Some of these are 3.5, 4 pounders, but I kind of need them now. So he's fishing for them, and he catches this, 5-pound female or for whatever it was, and he's getting the bait out of his mouth, and he goes, Dad, this one's for you.
Yeah.
And he said, now, I'm so glad you're feeling. He was talking to his dad through the camera, and I almost got choked up when that happened, because I knew what happened to his dad. But I hadn't talked to Drew about it yet, because I didn't want to bring it up that morning, because I didn't want to distract him. And I certainly didn't bring it up during the day. So I don't know that Drew knew that I knew about his dad, but I did. And when he said that, after he said it, that's when I said, dude, how is your dad doing? And we had an off-camera conversation after that. And to hear his voice and his confidence in how he handled the situation with his dad. He can't do anything about it. And he knew his dad would want him to do more than anything to get out there and kick their ass bass fishing and not let that be a distraction to him. I might get choked up right now talking about it, man, because that, you know, a broken down engine or, electronic fuse issues, that stuff is nothing compared
No.
to life. And y'all need to remember, you people that criticize these anglers for this or that or whatever it is, y'all need to remember these people have lives too. They're real people and they have, shit going on just like we do.
Yeah. And people try to compare it to other sports and stuff. And here's my take on that. It's hard to do your job, to perform any job when you got stuff going on at home. But here's the difference between being a football player that is going to play a game for 2.5 hours. I mean, a very violent and dangerous game, but still a game that a game plan has been put together for him by a coach. I mean, you look what anglers like. So the day after finding this out about his dad, going to see his dad that night and everything, he's pre-fishing at Santee and having to put the entire game plan together for the entire team. And by the team, I mean his family, his wife, his son, you know what I mean? So there's so much. And then, so you do that for 14 hours a day in pre-fish, and then you go to the tournament and you need to focus for 8 to 9 hours a day
For 4 days.
For 4 days. It's
for
not
4 days.
It's not like playing baseball. It's not like playing football. It's in that situation, I would imagine that, you put me on skates and say, okay, we're going to play hockey. That's a distraction because you're so focused on what's going on. But to be able to stay locked in like Drew did throughout those events, kudos to him. And as I said, we wish his father a speedy recovery, and I can't wait to see you again in the crowd at Elite Series events in the future.
Amen.
Yeah. Before we
Amen.
leave this event, though, I think, and maybe this is just new, but I just think we should talk about. I looked up like the top 3. There was 3 anglers at great events. Obviously, Drew Benton. Congratulations, you are exactly who we thought you was. And people may have forgotten going into the final day of the tournament because he slid all the way to 10th place, but he reminded them he is exactly who you thought he was. He is one of the best at it. Kudos to him. That's another dude that has been through a lot of personal stuff, but it's so great to see him so happy, so content, a brand new baby, his new wife, new family, doing well, and fishing better than he's ever fished, really. If you look at his last 2 seasons, a win this season, last year was his best year in Angler of the Year points. Happiness allows you to do very, very well.
Bingo. Like that, you can tell when people are doing well. It's like, have you ever seen The Act of Valor, the movie about the Navy SEALs?
Yeah.
And there were real life situations, and this movie was all developed around real Navy SEAL stories. One of the scenes, the head SEAL or whatever the lead guy is, he said they got called in to go do an extraction in Central America, and they got into a group huddle. And they said, "Is everything cool? You guys need to get your lives in order before we leave. Do you need some money? Or is your family okay? Do you need babysitters? Everybody needs to be taken care of before we deploy, because if your head's not right, then this is not going to be right." And that reminds me a lot. I think about that scene a lot in these tournaments. While they're 2 very different, accomplishments and goals, the reaction is very similar in that if their head's not right, then they're not doing well. They just don't. And you can tell oftentimes when a guy that you expect to be doing well isn't doing very well, something in his, and I don't want to pry into people's personal lives, but that's going on, and you can see it in them at the dock, at the boat ramp, on the water, whatever it is, you can tell. And I want to say this real quick too. When I walked by Drew Cook on championship Sunday morning at the dock. He was lined up in 10th place. And there was another guy who I was talking to on the phone. Yeah, I'm sorry. Did I say Cook?
Yes. So confusing.
Drew Benton. I walked by Drew Benton and I looked at him, and I had been debating with another guy in my life right now that was saying, no one is going to beat I'm sorry, what is the Japanese guy's
Koya
last name?
Fujita.
Fujita. Da, 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 da. Here I am, Japanese. I can't remember his name. Fujita was going to run away with this, and I said, dude, this is one of those tournaments on one of those lakes where anyone, the 10th place guy, could come up and win this tournament. And I had that in my head. I was walking down the dock with my camera, and I passed Drew Benton, and I reached out and gave him a big high five, and I said, this is anyone's tournament in it. He looked at me like he was burning me down like the Terminator.
Yeah.
He was so focused, and he goes, that's exactly right. And I just walked away, and like, it was almost like this chill, this goosebump moment, because he was so focused. And then he turns around and wins this tournament coming out of 10th place.
Yeah. Incredible.
That was badass.
Being our first multiple winner, not of the year, but in all time. Everybody that's won this year in the Elite Series up to this point had never won before. So Drew Benton being the first winner that actually won 2 tournaments.
Wait, what do you mean?
Well, our first event, who won our first event? On Lake
How long ago was that?
Okeechobee. Tyler Rivette. He had never won before. The next
I see.
Joyce Fuentes had never won before.
This
Drew
year.
Benton,
Okay.
Yeah. So Drew Benton becoming our first winner this year that has multiple Elite Series wins. Another guy who had an incredible week was Hunter Shryock. I feel like sometimes there's events that people win without winning. And, he didn't win the tournament. He finished second in the tournament, had a big week, 85 pounds, 7 ounces. But dude, he won a lot on live. I mean, he was catching fish that he shouldn't have caught. Like, he'd say, like, this fish is going to get off.
Yeah.
He sold there's a massive amount of 10-pound Berkeley trialing that he sold because every time it happened, he talked about it. But like, he had fish wrapping around, and he's a very entertaining guy to watch fish. And I just felt like this event for him was kind of a breakout event. Not that people don't know who he is, but that amount of TV time, it's been a while since he's had that amount of TV time. And he had a great event, and, literally fished the way he loves to fish. And kudos to him for a great event.
When that stuff happens, I've been in the boat with 2 different guys when that kind of stuff was going on. Once with Jason Christie in the Classic last year at Hartwell, he had the dock rope fish that somehow didn't come off the hook. And then he had the other one that was wrapped around the cable, the dock cable, that he had to go in and maneuver the rod in and out to get his fish, off the cable, which we all know those cables are rusty and they cut lines and all kinds of stuff. And he said, I remember that day, he goes, that's the kind of thing when you win tournaments, sometimes you have to have a little luck where some of those things happen. Then in Lake Fork last year, Lee Livesey had 3 fish that were pinned to treetops on the same day. They were all over 5 pounds. One was an 8.3, and somehow he got his bait off the logs, whether he was dipping the tip down, he'd reel it all the way down and dislodge it. He was actually just trying to save his bait at that point, thinking he was sacrificing the fish. And 3 times he landed all 3 fish. And he said the same thing. He goes, man, sometimes you just get lucky, and you got to have things like that to win. And Hunter Shryock, while he didn't win, I agree with you, he won in a lot of ways, because how many times was he having to weave his rod in and out of those dock pillars just to get his fish unwound and to maintain the hook set on the fish and land those fish and do as well as he did. That was freaking entertainment at its best.
Incredible. And he too is expecting a child, so congratulations to his family. Another person that is a child, Koya Fujita, 26 years old. And dude, that dude is different. And everybody from Japan said this guy's coming along. He's different. I mean, he is 26 years old, didn't fish tournaments. You're not allowed to fish tournaments in Japan until you're 18. He started fishing the top level tournament at 20. He's 26 now. He's a 4-time angler of the year at the top level there. He's won 6 of their Elite Series events, basically. What he's accomplished is incredible. On the Elite Series, he already has 2 top 3s. The way he fishes is, I mean, I think the line of the tournament was when Drew Benton said, when I said, Drew's still sitting in the hot seat and there's one guy left to go. And I said, but this guy's pretty good or whatever. And Drew's like, yeah. And he has more electronics on my boat. He spent more money on his electronics than I spent on my house. And he has 5 forward facing sonar units on his boat. 3 on the front and 2 on the back. Right. It's amazing.
How do you even do that?
Did you watch the way he fished? He fished a totally different way. I mean, I'm just going to go on the record and say he's been on the show a few times. Randy Blockett's a buddy of mine, but he's probably not a fan of Koya Fujita because, I mean, you watch the way he fishes, dude. Like he puts his boat and it is all like it is scanning to the 10th degree. Like he literally just turns from side to side and perpetually does that in search of fish. And when he finds them, he catches them. He has 2 top 3s already, but he's like, his Elite Series career has been fire and ice. He's either on fire or he's ice cold because when he doesn't catch them, I mean, I think Okeechobee, he finished mid-70s somewhere. I think similar in Santee Cooper Lakes, didn't weigh in a fish on day 2. But boy, when he catches them, he is a scary, scary dude who's going to use a lure that you've never seen before, is going to fish a way you've never seen before. But I'm going to tell you, his presence going to be felt in a big way for a long time here because, dude, I mean, he's pretty freaking incredible.
Oh my goodness. He's like a high-tech stealth bomber scanning, for the enemy. And then he finds them and it's like a robotic movement or his technique. And then he pulls out some freaking rubber toy that looks like he got it, at Spencer's toy store and puts it on a hook and tosses it in there and catches a 5-pound bass on it.
Dude, and
tell me how that happens.
He is using nobody. I mean, here's some other insider stuff, dude. The rods and reels that he is using, I don't know exactly. They're not for sale. They are not for sale. Like they're $1,400 rods and stuff. Like they're going to be for sale eventually, I believe. But he's using stuff that, makes the highest end stuff seem like it's not even comparable. You know what I mean? Like it's nuts. But if you love high tech fishing, you're going to love you some Koya Fujita because and I'm going to say it, by the end of the season, dude, there'll be a ton of people running that many units on them because it's becoming that. Love it or hate it, it is becoming such a big, big part of the sport. It's such a big learning tool. But proving the point from the beginning where everybody says, you just put that on your boat and you're going to make the Elite Series and win. Koya has 5 of them yet to win. He's got close. He's got 2 top 3s. But there's 2 events where they did not even.
He didn't do.
He had 5
Santee
of them,
Cooper.
and he still didn't win. You know what I mean? So he didn't compete in those events. So they have their place, and when their place, how scary is he going to be when we get to smallmouth bodies of water?
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! What is he going to do on Champlain and St. Lawrence?
Oh,
and St. Clair.
Oh,
St. Clair.
I like to see it in an alternate universe where Takumi Ito doesn't like him. And he's like, you're coming here to take everything I built.
It's Godzilla and King Kong.
Well, he did at his first event. Because he had his first top, I guess it was Seminole, where he first, got on camera. And he had some powerful hook sets. And I asked him on stage, I'm like, well, how come Takumi's like not strong enough and you are not? He's like, He just looked at me. He's like, I'm more stronger. But the way he said it, it's like he's like a Japanese movie star. But I think Zona said it. Zona said he's a lot like Ivan Drago. Nobody knows a lot about him, but we just know he's good. That's all you hear. Like, that's all you heard about Drago. He's very good. But I can't tell you anything more about him, but he's very, very good. And he's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
He's going to change. He's changing bass fishing.
Yeah.
I mean, he's revolutionizing something that's already in existence, but he's doing it a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, look at how quick he made. I mean, Fish 3 Opens qualified for the Elite Series. Like, just,
I know, man.
It's like anything. Like,
have you seen the video clip about the history of it's like a 30-second TikTok clip, but it's about the history of Japanese, the relevance of Japanese brands and anglers, and I started looking this stuff up, and like Shimano and Daiwa, they've been around since like the early 1950s. And even when I was a kid, my mother, everyone knows, or most people know, my mother's Japanese, and I spent a lot of time around Japanese people. I've been to Japan a few times. And when I was a kid, my dad was a pearl farmer, and we had Japanese exchange employees that would come over from pearl farms in Japan to help my dad on his pearl farm in Tennessee. And I'm talking about when I was 8, 9 years old, those guys would bring Daiwa. Like, I still have 2 Daiwa mag forces from like 1981 that these guys brought me. And I remember seeing there's a little button on both of them, and I remember asking my friend Toshi, I said, what is this? He said, flip. It's a flip switch. And I was like, well, what is a flip switch? And those were like the first flipping rods that had a flip switch on it, so you didn't have to engage the button, right? And I still have those. And so, it's not like Japanese anglers are just coming out of their shells. These guys have been doing this for a long time. And obviously we all know the mindset in Japan is to take an idea, build upon it, and improve it, particularly from a technical perspective, into something that no one's ever even seen before, and while guys are looking for baits like a glide bait or a swim bait that looks so much like the natural forage base, and they're not catching them, tossing these things around boat docks or onto points. There's some guy out there catching 5-pounders on something that looks like a daggum yo-yo toy.
Yeah, but
Gump that he got from a gumball machine.
He's bothering fish into biting is what he's doing. That's why he throws stuff like that, because he's bed fishing all year. He's bed fishing in 30 feet of water. He's finding a fish and shaking it in their face. And that, to me, I don't think anybody, I mean, the Japanese angling culture has been strong for a long time. The difference between Koya Fujita and a lot of Japanese anglers that have been here is that finesse game has stood out so strong for many of them, because of how, I mean, you talk to Takumi and he'll tell you, like, I fished one spot from the shore. I had to figure out a way to make them bite. Whatever was there, I had to make bite. So, but this advancement on electronics and everything, like it's not, he's just the Japanese kid that's doing it. There is a ton of young anglers that are rocketing to the top because they're willing to get really, really good at that type of fishing. And that's the big question. How does that affect things in the future? Does it change? Like, I know there's people who are like, we need rid of it. It's ruining fishing. There's other people who say that it might be the best thing ever, because there's people like Koya Fujita that are watching this, and that will help them relate with it. And that only time will tell. Everybody's got their opinion on it. But one thing I will tell you is Koya Fujita is going to be around here for a long, long freaking time, because he is very, very good. So congrats on everyone from that event. Then we went to our next event. Right? We can move on, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. Our next event, Santee Cooper Lakes. We're going back to where we saw 200-pound bags weighed in last year, obviously by our tournament leader, Drew Cook, as he tries to defend his title. And Caleb Kufal got 100 pounds there last year. But don't forget about the guy who finished 4th place there last year, Luke Palmer, and was very upset that he didn't catch 100 pounds, came so close, didn't do it again, but won this tournament, doing exactly what he did the year before in the exact same area, using basically the exact same baits. And he freaking demoralized the competition, dude. Like to win the way he, like, thank God for Mark Menendez or that last day weigh-in. Nobody would have ever taken the hot seat. So tell me about Santee Cooper Lakes. Who were you with? You were with Drew Cook to start, right? Our
Drew
defending
Cook day
champion.
one. Yeah. And so, for those of you that don't remember, we were a month later this year than we were last year.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, not saying not too many people know this, but some anglers probably don't know this because they don't know bass as well as they probably should. But the spawn goes on for a long time. It's not like, it's not like the deer rut where it's over in in a week, and then you got to change everything else. There are fish spawning all over that lake a month later than we were last year. And the guys that are confident about bed fishing are the ones that that did really well. I wasn't with Luke, so I didn't really see exactly what he was doing. But again, it was more challenging for Drew Cook this year because the fish, there weren't as many. There's so many beds. And instead of having every bed full of fish, you had to go find a bed with a fish in it to catch them, right?
Yeah.
And that's basically what they did. They just put their trolling motor down. They, he started, let me see, Drew Cook started on a 10-pounder on,
Yeah. Day one.
yeah, he
He did.
started on a 10-pounder. And here's a little scoop that people didn't see. So he's on a point. He's got a 10+ pounder that he knows of. That's where he went straight to, and he fist bumped when we pulled up on it and there was no angler on that point. He was like, yes. And I was being with Drew, I was just like, dude, I'm getting ready to film him catch a true giant, right? So he pulls up and his fish is there. There's a male and there's a female there, but it's a little windy and it's a little bit deeper and he can't really see it that well. So he's playing with these little, sight details, trying to figure this thing out. And she's just not buying it. She's not in the right mood or whatever. He couldn't see it well enough to get and there was one stick coming across the bed that he was trying to flip over that kept getting in his way, and he was trying to move it out of the way, but it was a part of the scene on the bed. So he was scared to move it too much that he was going to change things or spook her away. Right. So then he's looking back. He's got like a 7-pounder and a bunch of big males over here on 3 or 4 beds, literally like 85 yards away behind him to his left. And he keeps looking back thinking, well, maybe I should go over there and catch him and then come back to let this one rest. He kept looking back, and then dun dun dun, drum roll please. Brrr, John Cox shows up. And Drew Cook's like, dude, like, of all the people that you don't want to show up on a bedfish, it's John Cox, and here he comes. And he goes over straight to that 7-pounder and pulls down, and he's flipping and struggling, and he catches 2 fish. Drew was focused on what he was doing, but he heard him catch 2 fish, so he assumed he caught that big one. And when John finally went away, Drew pulled up and went over there and started looking, and he rode over 2 or 3 pound males, and then was like, well, he caught that big one. So he went away. We went somewhere else, came back. John Cox came back and he asked him, he said, did you catch those fish? that big 7-pounder? He goes, no, I couldn't catch her, man. So she was still there. So, that's one of those things that you don't really see as a viewer on TV that goes on the lakes where, you know, people have mad respect for other anglers and they've got a secret spot and they show up and don't know anyone else knows about it. And there they come. And it's just part of the dynamics of being on the water in a tournament.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, Cox is not the guy you want to have pulling up in that situation, but it's also part of the problem, when you're a month later, when you think about it, yeah, it's more difficult to win on betting fish. Probably gonna have less people fishing for betting fish, but the people that are going to be the betologists that are best at it. And there's going to be less of them to fish for. But he had a great tournament, ended up finishing third in that event. It wasn't the event he had last year, but I mean,
It was
you got
pretty freaking cool though, man.
pretty incredible to finish third. Like, you look at how many anglers try to defend their title, to actually just go out there and have a shot to defend your title on Sunday is rare.
Mhm.
And to finish third, a great, and I believe he's sitting in second place for Progressive Bassmaster Angler of the Year points
Yep.
right now. So,
Yep.
so Cook is having a great year. Nobody's having a better year than Cobb. Cobb is actually, but both of them have made 3 cuts this year because Cobb missed one and so did Cook. I think Cobb was a little closer on the one he missed than Cook, and that's literally the difference between the two of them. But they've both made 3 top 10s this season, so they're both having great years. But you went from sight fishing to
Finesse
something
fishing on a power
totally
lake.
different on day 2 and 3 and 4 of that event, because you spent the rest of the event with Paul Mueller.
Yeah. So after day 1, Drew ended up 8th after day 1. So normally I would stay with Drew in the top 10, but day 1 and day 2, we only have 6 cameras on the water. So if you fall out of the top 6, you don't get a camera in your boat the next day.
Yeah.
So I went from Drew Cook to Paul Mueller, who had, what was he, second or third after day 1? He sacked up like 25 and
Yeah,
a
the
half
giant day.
pounds on drop shots in deep water over stumps and using front facing sonar on Santee Cooper. And he had a very unique rotation. It was very efficiently laid out for him, where he went down to Lake Moultrie all the way to the south end of it. And then he came back around the fringe in the open water, but with the contour of the lake, where he had these really narrow ditches scoped out with his maps, his electronics, and they had stumps and some brush piles in them. And he had found a pattern where he could see fish, but a lot of times he was catching fish that he couldn't see. And it was really reminded me a lot of what Gussie was doing on the Tennessee River during the Classic. It was very similar to what he was doing.
But he wasn't fishing vertical at all, was he? Like, he was catching
Oh,
them at the end of a
at
cast.
times he
He
was.
was.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So day 2 was the day when he lost several big ones, wasn't it? Like, he had a real
Dude,
shot.
he lost at least a 7-pounder and a 5-pounder right at the boat. And, and he only had 13 pounds that day on day 2 and stayed in the top 10 for day 3 and day 4. But he lost 12 pounds at the boat, and they were, we got them on camera. They
Yeah.
played it back in slow motion. They were big fish.
Yeah.
So yeah, he had, he had a pattern that could have won that tournament. And even on day 3 and 4, well, I shouldn't say that day 4, because he did something totally different because of the weather. He was throwing spinner baits and topwater around those Cypress Islands in protected areas because of the wind on day 4. But day 3, he went back to the same spots. He even went to some new spots that he found on the map and went in, didn't see fish, dropped his bait down and just, he was zigzagging through there with his front facing sonar, and he could see fish coming up from the bottom vertically, and then he would catch those fish. So I mean, there's no question his fish were there. He
Yeah.
could have easily won that tournament. They just didn't go.
Yeah. And it was good to see him. I mean, it's been a while. Mueller's an incredibly accomplished angler. He's
Man.
won 2 elites. He's Bass Nation champion. But man, he has been on an incredibly, and the weirdest thing is because Mueller is one of, in my opinion, and in a lot of anglers' opinion, he's one of the better forward-facing sonar guys. But if he's been also the weirdest part of that, because that's something he's done for years, and like since that's been a player, he hasn't been doing that good. So I don't know if it's a situation where you're chasing that too much or what, but he was back in it, and I totally agree. He was definitely, it was cool to see him doing something different than the majority of the field. But this tournament, I mean, him having a tough day 2 and still staying in it is the tail of the tournament. I mean, like going into the final day, only 4 of the top 10 had caught a limit every single day.
Right.
And it was Luke Palmer, Cobb, Cook, and Porosnik. And then when it was all said and done, the only one that caught a limit all 4 days of the tournament was Luke Palmer. I mean, which is so, and that which made it a crazy event. Like when you go to an event where there's big fish, you can make comebacks. But when you go to an event that it is big fish, but it's very unstable, crazy things can happen. Like Mark Menendez went from 34th and then ended up, finishing second place in the tournament. And he had one day,
did that?
9 pounds. He had one day on day 2, 9 pounds he weighed in, and literally in the same area, said he just fished over them that day. But the ability to come back, I mean, he weighed almost 28 pounds on day 3. So, I mean, that'll get you right in a hurry. But it was an exciting tournament in that way, because there was a lot of movement, just simply because not only can you catch big fish, but you can also fail big time. Like if they're all chewing, you can catch the big ones, but even the guy's got to drop. There's only so many spots you can make up by going up. You need some guys to drop too. And this one definitely set up in that situation.
There's no doubt. I'm trying to think. There was somebody that shot up from like 78th into the top 10 or 12 or something. I mean, it was.
Who is that?
I'm trying to remember.
Your claims are factless. Okay.
Don't make me go back and
ever since you stopped winning tournaments, you are really reaching for stuff here.
I know. But
do you feel pressure as a camera guy? Like people know that Jake's not on quite a heater this year, so are they less welcoming to you?
No, but Brian New said something to me on day 1 at Lake Murray. He goes, it's like towards the end of the day, he goes, dude, I thought you were supposed to be a lucky camera guy.
Well, I mean,
last year was a very unusual year as a camera guy to have all those wins. It definitely was.
Yeah.
But I love Santee Cooper. That's like one of the coolest lakes. And I'd never been down to Lake Moultrie before, because I had always stayed up on Marion. I can't remember how many times we've been to Santee in the last.
We've been 3 times in the last few years. So
yeah, I knew that, but I'd never been down to Lake Moultrie. So it was kind of cool to get out there and really be. And I've known Paul for a while. I filmed him 3 days in a row win the St. Johns River back in 2020 or 2019, whatever that was. So, that's when I became friends with Paul, and I was glad to get back in the boat with him. It had been a while, and he is truly he's knowledgeable. And he's also very verbally explanatory, where he explains every little detail that's going on when you ask him a question. And that's because he's a guide. and he guides almost every single day. He's not fishing a tournament back home, and he's a multi-species guide. And I've heard Lee Livesey say this about him, about Paul Mueller, in respect to him, in that he knows what's going on underwater as well, if not better than anyone, because he fishes for multi-species as a guide full time, and he understands what makes a lake go,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is pretty cool.
He's a great angler,
He
and
really
hopefully
is.
he rides this momentum into some more great events ahead. One of the big stories about this event was a story that held around all week, and everybody was worried about Sunday. The weather was supposed to get bad. I do want to talk to you about something to do with that in a minute, but before we do that, you were as far away as you could get, and you had to run back. What was the run back like on
Dude.
Sunday in that storm?
It was a roller coaster. It was a amusement park ride. It was a movie set. It was even in the protected areas, it was bad. And then once we got out to the channel lane going across the south end of Lake Marion, it was crazy. I mean, it was crazy. We were it felt like we were in a car wash with the big spinners and the spray. We were literally getting freaking mowed down with water, just kapoosh, kapoosh, kapoosh. And we were taking them over the bow. There was nothing we could do because you can't quarter tack those waves all the time, because you
Yeah.
have to go to a certain direction. And with those tight boat lanes, channels, you can't tack back and forth. And you have to be aware you could get washed into one of those poles too. Like, it was truly compromising, and truly, I'm not going to say jeopardizing, because those guys are very
Yeah.
good boat captains, and B, most of us have been on lakes and big water, and we're not nervous and doing stupid things. We're just, hey man, we're just going to get through this. It's going to take a while, but we're going to get through it. But those were literally some of the steepest, probably not the tallest. I've seen the biggest waves I've ever seen were on Lake Erie in a walleye tournament, but these were the steepest and tightest waves I'd ever seen, perhaps only challenged by the year when on day 4 when Polinick won Champlain. That was a rough ride back too. But
Yeah.
that was pretty wild going through all that stuff. And we were on the far, on the far west side of Lake Moultrie. When we come out of the fishery canal, we're on that side of Lake Marion. And so we're considering, like, even the options. What are the options here? We have an hour to get back. Paul's got a 5-pounder and a 4-pounder in his live well. He's got 9 pounds. And obviously the fishing day is just about over until we get closer to weigh in. And he's considering his options on what to do. And then Steve Kennedy pulls up. We saw him at the bridge flipping those docks by that restaurant. And then he comes up behind us in his Bass Cat, and it's just whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And Steve goes, well, I'm going across. I think it'll be okay if you just stay in the trough. I'm going that way. And him and Trey Bruce turn and go, whoom. They just disappeared. We're like, well, I hope they made it. But anyhow, he ended up, 5 minutes later making the decision to go through, and it was a wild experience, but we made it, and all is well.
Yeah.
We got wet.
Yeah. And it's by the time you got to the weigh-in, every angler said, I never got wet today. It was perfect. I'm so thankful for X amount of boat, whatever it is. Like, you see them, they all get off the water and they're disheveled messes.
Right.
And then by the time they sit in that weigh-in line, I mean, dude, there's certain stuff that doesn't matter what you're in. I mean, the Titanic sunk. It doesn't matter how big your boat is, how well they think they built it. It can be harrowing rides. So I have a topic that I talked about on live. Me and Davey talked about it. And I wanted to talk about it amongst us, amongst the community, the humpers that come here every week to
Okay.
get people's opinion, especially your opinion.
Okay.
I have been thinking about this for a long time, and I've said it. You may have heard me talk about it, but I talked about it on live. So all week long, we keep hearing that Sunday, there's going to be this big storm. We might not go. There's a chance, there was a rumor flying around the expo that it's already canceled on Saturday afternoon, which was nothing further from the truth. And before we get into this, Lisa Talmadge, Chris Bowes, the entire tournament staff, kudos. You made the perfect call. If you'd have made any different call all day, I'm like, they are getting to fish the majority of the day safe. They're going to have an uncomfortable boat ride back. But if they had canceled or postponed that day, people would have been walking around saying, well, how can this day be canceled? Because a lot of the day was great fishing. So kudos to them for making the right decision. But all week long, we keep hearing that this is affecting things. So it's in anglers' heads. It's in people, what is I remember even asking anglers on Saturday. It was so in their head. I was like, are you fishing different today? Knowing that there's a chance that tomorrow may be delayed or may not happen. That's how much of a thing it was. So the sport keeps getting bigger. I mean, it's live on FS1, live on Fox during the Classic and everything. And I've just thought for a long time, we need to bring some new rules into the sport. And one of those rules is an extreme weather location. And what I mean by that is, and how I explained it on the thing, I was like, if you take this area where we're fishing out of, so the takeoff area, and let's say in that situation, you said from 2 miles one direction of the dock to 2 miles the other direction of the dock. So you have a 4 mile stretch. That's where we fish. And that is our extreme weather location. Now, we may never use these, but this is all anglers want, in my opinion, is no gray. They just want to know what they're doing. They just want to know, are we going? Are we not going?
Yeah.
They're all willing to do it. They just don't want gray or don't want to know. So this, by having an extreme weather zone or whatever you call it, foul weather zone, whatever you call it, it's a map that we send to the anglers before an event starts. And it's for every fishery. So this is your extreme weather zone. If we get into a situation, this is specifically Championship Sunday stuff. If we get into a situation when there's 10 anglers left in this field, and if the weather is bad, the sport is too big to just say we're not going anymore. And it's too big to just do a lot of the things that maybe have happened in the past, in my opinion, because when it doesn't happen, it doesn't go on FS1. It's a big machine. There's a lot of pieces.
Those guys pay their entry fees to fish 4 days.
Yeah. Those guys have plans on Mondays and Tuesdays after events, whether it be with sponsors and things like that. It's hard whenever an event switches a lot. It costs the anglers, it costs bass,
camera guys. We got to
sponsors,
stay an extra day.
Yeah.
Convince our families that that's going to be okay. Make different arrangements, all kinds of stuff, man.
Everything.
It's expensive and compromising.
Yeah. So this extreme weather zone, I think it's time we need to start to have something like this in our sport, because all it is before the event, you're sent that, and it says that if we get in a situation where Sunday is a no-go, we will restrict the playing field to this zone. And I get it, because it's the internet. So people are going to say right away, oh, I've got a reason you shouldn't do that, because how's that going to help you if there's a lightning storm? It's not, but it's going to contain that area, and it's going to allow us to control it. I mean, if the area is small enough, you could shut down fishing if there's a lightning storm. You could delay the takeoff, the fog and things like that. But wind and things like that, they're sustained throughout the day. That's what was your big worry. Electric and wind was the two biggest worries this week. That zone would allow us to have somewhere to compete. It would be very similar to other sports where they have, if a baseball game gets to this many innings, it's this. Because, for example, the worry in this one was there is a new rule that an Elite Series event can't be extended more than 1 day after the final day of competition. So in this situation, the wind was actually worse on Monday. So let's say they had to pull the plug Sunday. Monday would have rolled along and they'd have had to pull the plug again. I was there. It was way windier on Monday than it was on Sunday. So then you would have had a situation where, congratulations, Luke Palmer, you won because he was the day 3 leader and he ended up winning the tournament. But it's kind of a
no stage, no crowd.
Yeah.
No celebration, traditional win, none of that. It would have been a huge bummer.
And
I
9
agree.
anglers didn't get a chance. And 9 anglers would have said, I didn't even have a shot. So this zone gives them a shot. And as a fan, I think this zone is what's going to be really exciting, because how different does Sunday come? If you say, okay, well, we're now in this zone, this 4 mile radius, and the size, that's all up for debate. Where it is, every different venue is different. There's going to have to be some work put into it. But this is going to save work, and it's going to allow anglers to know already in their head. They start thinking on Saturday when they're thinking that this might be shut down. They're already starting to think, how am I going to catch them in that zone? Some of them would have pre-fished it. Some of them wouldn't, because you may never use one of these. But we as spectators, what we get to see now is then we get to see it's not made up reality jokey. Like, we're not zeroing weights and saying, hey, this isn't your leader, but we get to watch Luke Palmer figure out how to hold on to his lead there. We get to watch these other anglers literally crack the nut right in front of us by having them figure it out in front of us. And I say it is time. The sport's bigger. We need to have something like this in place moving forward. So it's just more controllable and takes out the gray. What say you, Jake?
I got a question. Okay.
All right.
And I'll comment on it. Do you make that zone no fishing zone the first 3 days?
You could, but then you get into a I think you could. I think you could, but the problem is, if it depends how big you want to make the zone. I mean, we have an off limits period as it is. You just make that off limits period much bigger.
It's got to be big enough for 10 boats to fish without fishing on top of each other, right?
You could do that. You could outlaw it. I think that's honestly up to the anglers. You know, do you want it to be an area where nobody's fished? Because like in this top 10, for example, if you did 4 miles, you're probably Polinick's got his spot is in that 4 mile radius. So you got Polnick in the top 10. So now are you hurting him or helping him? Well, now he has information on that area, but you're hurting him because you put 9 guys on top of him. All of that stuff, I think, can be worked out. All of that. I mean, you could get nuts if you wanted. You could say, hey, guess what? Extreme weather zones are now, it's a whole course for the final day. We're going old school mega bucks and bringing it. I mean, there's any direction you can go, but any direction is better than the direction of we don't know. And even for the tournament department, I mean, how nice is it if they're like, well, I don't have to make a decision that says today is canceled. It's just a flick of the switch. Well, you guys know what the deal is. We're under this extreme weather warning, so we have an extreme weather zone, and that's where we're competing. I just don't see. I don't see the bad in it. To me, it at the hindsight's always going to be 2020. I mean, if we do it and Luke Palmer doesn't win, I'm sure there's going to be the Luke Palmer fans that are like, man, he had a lead and then he kind of got screwed. Well, the same thing can happen. He could have been catching his fish where Paul Mueller was, and he got screwed. I mean, Luke would just happen to, through the luck of the draw, you could still fish in his area.
What about this? So, you know, the most heavily pressured area on and every single tournament, in my opinion, is a mile, but going both ways from the takeoff, because when everybody comes in, they've got 4 minutes left.
Yeah.
Everybody's fishing. Like, it's heavily pressured. And I've only filmed 2 guys catch good fish in that zone in 13 years. Drew Cook did it one time on Lanier, and I was in Drew Cook's boat last year on Santee Cooper, and I watched Chad Morgenthaler catch a 5-pounder off a cypress tree, literally half a mile from the dock. But there was 6 other boats in this pocket too, you know? And so, and I agree with you. There needs to be an alternative in place so that we know we're going to fish 4 days. Like, every single event is going to be a 4-day tournament. The only altercation that modification that might occur would be on day 4 based on weather report. And I agree with that. But I just wonder, you know, you're going to have, I mean, that area around the boat, the launch takeoff is so heavily pressured. What does that do?
It's heavily pressured for the entire field. I mean, now it changes why you're doing it. all of a sudden, if you're, all of a sudden, if you're Luke Palmer and you have a giant day like he had on Saturday, maybe you go back to that area early because you know that there's a chance I might be fishing here tomorrow. Now, all of a sudden, you're not just running back to fish those areas to try and get a lucky big fish at the last minute. You're ingesting information. You're getting prepared.
I know what a big question would be too.
What's that?
I know what one of the really big questions would be too after day 3. Where are they releasing the fish?
Well, in the water. They don't know where they're releasing the fish anyways. You know what I mean? So it doesn't. I think you're finding reasons not to do this, Jake. I mean, really, you're whoa.
I'm playing devil's.
Where are they releasing the fish? Okay, well, here's your option. Then we'll just sit in the hotel all day and hope it's better tomorrow.
I'm just bringing up questions that I know these anglers are going to ask.
That's a dumb question. And I'll tell where are the live release? The fish are released where they've always been released. If you're worried about live release fish, you shouldn't have just started worrying about them now. I mean, tournaments get won on live released fish, but that's
Remember
also
the Sabine.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of tournaments get won on live released fish. I'm
just playing devil's advocate. I'm not trying to be difficult.
Oh, yes.
I'm just saying. No, I'm not. No,
since you stopped winning.
No, I'm not.
He was a different Jake last year. Just saying. Saying.
I had way more confidence in myself last year because I was winning.
Mark Menendez had a freaking nuts tournament, cool. As I said, 34th to second. Hard to believe.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Good for him. He needed that.
Yeah. And
that was cool.
It was awesome. I mean, and again, goes back to the beginning of this podcast. We talked about how close you are. This close. Brian New's having a rough season, but he's this close to having a great season. Mark Menendez figures out what he figured out on day 3, just a few hours earlier on day 2. And he said, I fished over them. You know, he had a good day 1, day 2. It just didn't work out. He had 9 pounds. Day 3, almost 28. And day 4 had over 20 again and finished second in the tournament. So, I mean, the adjustments are really that close. It's pretty amazing. And good to see Menendez. He's totally that guy though. Like, you know, like if you look at his career, he's made 6 classics, but so he has good seasons and he has some rougher seasons, but it's almost like there's never a season where he doesn't get in the top 10. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, even if it's not going great for him, he's one of those guys who is able to find something a little different and compete.
That's experience, right?
Yeah.
That's just years and years of experience at this level.
Yeah.
I was happy to see him do well.
Yeah.
I actually don't know Mark very well. I've met him a time or two, but I've never been in his boat and I've never really conversed with him.
Well, you guys should get together. I feel like you would.
Mark, next time I see you, I'm going to come shake your hand.
Get in his DMs.
We're going to go out to dinner.
Oh, wow. Mark loves dinner. He does. Hey, one group of people that I want to talk about that we never talk about. We give the videographers a ton of love, every single one of them, winning or not. I love all of you. But there's one group that I don't think gets a lot of talk about. And I don't know why it stood out for me so much on these last few events, but our photography group, whether it be James Overstreet, Sago, Andy Crawford, Shane Durant's, Dalton, D. Little,
Kyle Jesse,
all of them. They are really, and in that last tournament, I mean, Kyle Jesse's, if you want to see an awesome on the water gallery, and all of these cameramen are great shooters. They shoot incredible stuff. And I think we ingest it during an event, so we kind of lose the impact of it, because if you take any one of those single shots and just look at it as a shot, you're like, wow. But Kyle Jesse's gallery that he did on Luke Palmer this past tournament, this Saturday and Sunday, incredible. Some of the best shots I've ever seen captured. But the funny thing was, I'm looking through the Sunday weigh-in pictures, and I'm like, there's Overstreet's weigh-in gallery, and I'm like, it's one of the better ones we've ever had. You know what I mean? I'm like, there's just so many like cool, iconic moments, like pictures. And if you go through that gallery, like there's a picture of Bryant Smith, who's an Elite Series rookie, made his first Actually, talk about a good South Carolina swing, got a 12th and a top 10. So he made his first top 10 at the second event in South Carolina. And there's just this picture of him, like he's like in the boat and the Bass logo's behind him. And I'm just like, man, that's an iconic, like that's your first top 10. That's the picture you want. Overstreet's got this really cool picture of Mueller with the reflection in his graph and stuff like that. And then I go look at Shane Durant's, who always does the behind the scenes stuff. And a lot of times the behind the scenes is puppies and
babies,
and babies and ladies and a lot of spectators and stuff like that. But dude, that gallery that he put together, like, was so, like, there's a picture of Cooper Gallant and his dad. And I'm like, that, I don't need to know what happens the rest of Cooper's life, but I can tell you that picture is going to be part of his life. That picture is going to be something that he goes back and looks at. Oh, it's just such an iconic moment. And I watched, so you're looking and you're like, all these camera folks are shooting the exact same moment, but they're good enough and that it looks totally different. Everybody's got a different set of eyes. So I did want to specifically give the photographers a shout out, because I honestly, like, I think we take it for granted, but Bass has assembled an incredible group of videographers and still photographers, and the still photographers freaking brought it in the South Carolina swing. Not that the videographers didn't, but I just felt like, for whatever reason, I'm looking through it and I'm like, does anybody notice like how lucky we are that they're shooting the same thing and it looks totally different. They're just seeing it from a different set of eyes. So kudos,
a different angle,
to them.
Yeah, they are part of our on the water experience. You know, they are part of. There's always a pilot boat around us, and it's a satellite boat around us. And if there's only one follower on the boat we're covering on the lake, it's usually a photographer, Sago, you know, or Andy Crawford. I for some reason I get hooked up with Andy Crawford a lot, as he covers the guys that I do. It used to be Dalton, and then before that it was Sago. And they're very conscientious. They're all fishermen, or at least some of them are. Sago probably isn't, but but he still understands the fish.
Isn't a fisherman or isn't conscientious?
No, he's very conscientious.
Okay, sorry.
Very, very
clarifying your words there.
They know where they can go and where they can't go. They communicate with the angler. Where do you want me to be? They're there for the angler, for the magazine, for the digital and print platforms, but they're there for the angler too. And the anglers know dynamically that if they hook a big one and they bring the fish around to the side the photographer's on, that gives the photographer a better opportunity to get the best shots. And they're very aware of that. Are they going to do that every time? No, because they got to land their fish. The longer they're in the water, the better chance they have of losing that fish. But if it's going that way, they're very dynamically conscientious of that angle. And, you know, they work together. And hell, I communicate with, especially Crawford and Kyle Jesse and even Sago. We text a lot when they're there. Like, they'll ask me, how big was that fish? Or, you know, if it's Drew Cook and he's flipping onto a bed, you know, Sago might say, how big is that fish? And I'll tell him, or I'll ask Drew, how big is that one? He's like 7 or 8 pounds. So they're part of our experience on the water, and there's a big, if not bigger part of the family than anyone else involved in bass. And I love all those guys. They're all family to us.
Yeah. Speaking of family, we get to spend a little time with our family, and then we're at Lay Lake next. It's not a back-to-back, but we have about 10 days in between them. You got anything else to hit?
Wait, Lay Lake, and then where do we go?
Orange, Texas after that.
Oh, yes, Sabine after that.
Yeah.
Then it's Whiskey Myers at Red Rocks.
Wow. All right. I think that's all we got, though, right? You covered everything fishing-wise. We've done. Hey, I do. Real quick, tell me about your kid. Walker.
Let me say, okay, hold on.
Okay,
let me say this too, because Luke Palmer,
very, to steal a term from you earlier, you are very verbally explanatory. This is very long podcast.
I've been told that before.
Tell
one
us.
one of my favorite people that I don't get to hang with much as far as an angler goes is Luke Palmer. I've been a big believer in him for a really long time. I got to cover him on Gunnersville several years ago, and the way he fished and his knowledge of the game and his work ethic. I mean, him and his dad own a hardware store. He's not full time like a lot of other people are. He goes home and he works hard, blue collar guy. And I just want to shout out to Luke Palmer. Big time congratulations. Really happy for you. That was a long time coming, buddy.
Yeah,
Good
he
job.
deserves it. He
He
deserves
does.
it. I talked to him this morning, partying this week. I mean, it's
Good
15
for
hours
him.
home. I just won late. I'm going to stay and relax, and I'll see you guys at Lay Lake. Real quick update on boxing progress.
Yeah. My son Walker, he won. He had a fight on Saturday while I was at Santee Cooper, and I was texting his coach and his coach's wife back and forth. They were giving me updates. As soon as he won the fight, my his coach's wife texted me and started sending me pictures and videos immediately. So I'm filming, watching all this stuff on my phone because it was my son. And I would definitely give a shout out to my son. He works his butt off. Boxing is an extreme sport. It takes conditioning unlike any other sport. Maybe UFC and MMA are equivalent, if not more, but those kids work very, very hard. Both of his sparring partners, DC and Noah, both won. So those were the only guys on that team that were in that tournament were the three little guys, the 8 and 9 year olds at 60 to 65 pounds, and all three of them won their fights. So they had a triple sweep, and they were all very happy and confident. And definitely kudos to my son Walker for winning. That was his very first win out of 5 fights so far. And I knew it would take a while for him to put all these things together in a stepping stone format of training, and he finally put it all together and won a unanimous decision. So thanks for bringing that up.
Way to go, Walker. Wait. We only pull this out for special moments. Cowbell for Walker on the win. And the better thing is his father is a boxer. It was a boxer. It took you, what, 8 fights before your first win?
I was 0-8, my first 8 fights. And I knew this was going to take a while for him to get in the groove. He was 0-4 until he won his first fight, and he is a better fighter. There's no question he is a better fighter than I was at that age and time. And I'm really, really proud of my son, all my children, but on this occasion, I'm really, really proud of Walker. Good job, dude.
Way to go, Walker. I'll apply to be your hype man in the future when you're winning.
I asked him
4-1 fighting Walker ain't no fun.
That's right. I asked him the other day, I said, what do you want to, this had nothing to do with boxing. I said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he said, I want to be a professional boxer. I was like, ugh, huh.
Well,
we'll see. We'll see about that. My dad always told me that I had to quit when I got to a certain level, because when you get to 15, 16 years old, that's when you really take some big shots. I mean, you can literally get knocked out cold. And my dad was always an advocate of letting me fight up until that point and then moving on to something else. So there were no health risks involved long term. So we'll see.
Nice.
We'll see. Yeah.
That's smart. That's smart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Lay Lake next, and Walker won. And hopefully this podcast was verbally explanatorily strong. I didn't even know if that's a term. I'm very impressed by it, though. And hopefully let a few little nuggets of what happened at the South Carolina swing on the Bassmaster Elite Series.
South Carolina. You're a cool state.
Why does anyone watch this? Why do you even watch?
I don't know.
Oh, take it away, Bob Cobb.
Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, because Bob Cobb of the Bassmasters told you to. You hear?